Tonight, it's my sincere pleasure to be able to introduce this year's Hall of Fame team inductee, the 1975 Port Huron Shamrocks baseball team. They are very deserving. Let me put a few things in perspective to tell you just how good this team was. Back in the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, Port Huron was a very big baseball city. Little League had 24 teams, almost 400 players. All four fields at Rural Street were filled and spectators all around. Babe Ruth had 12 teams, full teams. Softball leagues of every level competed every night and daily at the many softball fields that we had. There was fast pitch, modified, co-ed, women's league, slow pitch, or churches. The church league was huge. Each year we had teams competing for state championships and national championships. At the top of this heap was the Blue Water Baseball Circuit. It contained 16 to 19-year-old all-stars. They came from everywhere. They came from Port Huron, they came from Marysville, they came from Algonac, Yale, even Chatham and Sarnia. The caliber of play was outstanding. They were virtual all-stars. Several college players played in the league, as well as former or future college all-stars. I had an opportunity several times to umpire these games, and I can attest to the caliber of play in these teams. Which gets us to the Shamrocks. In 1974, the Shamrocks and the Port Huron Diamonds played against each other for league championship. That year, the Diamonds won it. The very next year, the Shamrocks came back and duplicated the feat and won the regular league play and the finals. Port Huron Diamonds were inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2007. So it's apt that the Shamrocks have their place. The Shamrocks were coached by assistant Herman Banks and head coach Tim Kerber. If you're familiar with those two names, then you're a baseball fan in Port Huron. Coach Kerber is well known as an educator and a coach in Port Huron. He is more than knowledgeable of the ins and outs of baseball. His teams were motivated, they were disciplined, they were high quality, and they did things the right way. For all of this, Coach Kerber himself was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2012. The Shamrocks are very deserving of this honor, and I would like to ask you to please join me in congratulating the 1975 Shamrock baseball team and Tim Kerber for their induction into the Hall of Fame tonight.
You all know that we have an extra hour of daylight, so I thought I'd take advantage of that and go through the box scores for all 38 games that we played in the summer of '75. I'd like to congratulate all the other inductees tonight. It's a great honor, and 1975 was a long time ago, and we're ready. We are ready for tonight. Baseball legend that I'm sure everybody's heard about, Yogi Berra, Hall of Famer. He was being honored by his hometown of St. Louis, Missouri, a long time ago. And after a beautiful introduction of Yogi, he walked up to the podium, he turned and addressed the organizational committee, and his words were, "I'd like to thank you for everything you did to make tonight necessary." Not to challenge the wit and wisdom of Yogi Berra, but on behalf of the 1975 Port Huron Shamrock baseball team, their families and friends, I'd like to thank the committee for this honor. You made a lot of people really happy with your decision, and we want you to know that we're very appreciative. The Shamrock, I'm going to read this next part because I don't want to mess it up. The Shamrocks were part of the baseball scene in Port Huron for 8 seasons, and partly because of the high level of competition that Dave mentioned that summer, the 75 Shamrock team has been selected as the best of those 8 squads. They set a high standard of not only winning games, but playing games the right way, and with a genuine respect for the great game of baseball. While this team set a high standard, I feel that it's important for me tonight to mention that the 6 teams that followed the 75 team maintained that high level of quality winning baseball. 62 players wore the green Shamrock uniform over those 8 years, running up an overall record of 188 and 52. Because of their commitment over those 8 years to winning while playing the game the right way, all these many years later, 47 years, it's still a source of pride to have been a Shamrock. Any introduction of the team should rightfully and respectfully begin with our assistant coach that year, Mr. Herman Banks. Anyone who knew Mr. Banks knows what a gift he was to the city of Port Huron, and especially to the baseball fields that he looked after and the softball diamonds he looked after. He especially loved baseball, but he particularly loved this particular group of players. When Mr. Banks was laid to rest, there was a picture of him in the funeral home in his Shamrock jersey. Wow. Mr. Banks passed away, and as I mentioned, he was laid to rest in his Shamrock jersey. And I hope my wife back there is paying attention to that part of my talk. Mr. Banks passed away in 1979, but here tonight to represent his dad was our bat boy back in those early days, and Mr. Banks' son, Corey Banks. He's in the back there. Another member of the Banks family who isn't with us tonight is Mr. Banks' son, Rick. My first experience with Rick was back in 1969 when I took over the local 44 Little League team. Rick was 11 years old. The following year, local 44 won the city championship. There's 3 members of that team that are here tonight that were later became Shamrocks. Mike Hepting, Dan Langolf, and Jesse Gunner, who are back there, and I'll introduce in a little bit. I think if you ask any one of the 3 of them, they will tell you that that city championship never would have happened without the baseball talents of Rick Banks. You could probably make a case that we wouldn't be here tonight if it weren't for the talents of Rick Banks. There's probably another person that's here tonight too that can attest to the contribution that Rick made, and that's Tom Manis, who's also here as a member of the Shamrock team. Rick hit 3 home runs off Tommy in one game in the finals of the Little League Championship. Sorry, Tommy. Like his dad, Rick loved the game of baseball. He hit for average, he hit for power, he was one of our outstanding pitchers, and he even led the team in stolen bases. Rick passed away in 2014, and while it breaks my heart that he can't be here tonight with his teammates, he is being represented tonight by his son Rick, his daughter Crystal Williams, and his granddaughter Caden Williams. They also are in the back of the room. There was one player on the team that I couldn't find, Neil Lucas. And Neil, if you ever have an opportunity to watch the video that's being taken tonight, we want you to know that we're thinking about you and we hope you are happy and well. Of the remaining 16 players, every single one of them has made the effort to be here tonight, which I think is a pretty great indicator of how much tonight's induction means to each and every one of them. All 18 team members were among the best of their age group growing up. As Dave mentioned, back in the day when baseball and softball were king in the summer around here. From Little League to Babe Ruth to high school to the Shamrocks, and for some beyond in college programs, these guys played the game. They played it the right way. They were blessed with God-given talent, but they nurtured that talent. They worked hard, and the results of that nurturing has come full circle here tonight. At this time, I'd like to introduce the team, the 1975 Port Huron Shamrock team. When I read your name, please come forward and get a certificate from Coach Semmelsberger here. And I want to say something real quickly and shortly about each player. Thank God for that extra hour tonight, right? So if you would please hold your applause until we get to the end, we can save some time and hopefully you get to hear a little bit about these guys. Randy Allen. Randy was an outstanding center fielder. A special highlight of Randy's from the 75 season was a grand slam home run that he hit off Dave Dussler in the league playoffs. Terry Beach. Terry played infield and pitched, but I think he would most want me to mention tonight that he joins his dad, Carl Beach, in the Hall of Fame. And Terry is here tonight from Jacksonville, Florida. John Capadilli. Cap was one of the top catchers in the area, both for the Shamrocks and for Port Huron Central High School, where he was a great athlete. He later became a top outfielder in modified softball. Doug Fowler, nicknamed Bones. He was chosen as MVP of the team in both the 74 and 75 seasons by his teammates. In 1975, he led the Blue Water baseball circuit with 11 home runs, and he one time during the season hit 4 consecutive home runs. Al Goheen. Al was nicknamed Lightning by his teammates for his overpowering fastball. He pitched a 1-hit, 14 strikeout game against the Diamonds and was undefeated as a starting pitcher. He pitched 2 years at SC4. Al's up here tonight with his wife from North Carolina. Jesse Gunner. Jesse was an outstanding catcher for that local 44 team, and then 4 seasons with the Shamrocks. He still spends a lot of time behind the plate, traveling across the state as an umpire. Byron Hazley. Byron comes from an amazing family of outstanding athletes. Tonight, our first baseman joins his dad, Booker Hazley, his uncle, John Hazley, and his cousin, Dave Winfield, as members of the Port Huron Sports Hall of Fame. Mike Hepting. Mike played second base for that local 44 championship team and was famous for turning double plays. That talent followed him to the Shamrocks. Mike is here tonight from his home just outside of Houston, Texas, and he can't wait to get in front of a TV and find out how his Astros are doing. Dan Langoff. Oh, Mike is from Houston, I did mention. Dan Langoff. Dan is the final member of that local 44 team. He had a busy summer trying to balance playing for the Shamrocks and tending to his duties as captain of the Port Huron Northern's football team. Dan made the trip from Colorado to be here tonight. Tom Manis. Tommy was an outstanding player for the Shamrocks and one of the top outfielders in the area, combining speed and a strong arm. Tom also excelled for many years as a softball player, and he might take issue with that earlier statement that the Socorro Flyers were the best. I think he might mention the Little Caesars teams back then, maybe. And Tom was elected to the Port Huron Sports Hall of Fame himself in 2009. Dave Mavidi. Dave was another outstanding outfielder who played lots of different positions. Dave and I talked about him being a Shamrock long before he was even old enough to play. Dave was our rookie and our only 16-year-old. Dave is up here tonight also from Jacksonville, Florida. Doug Messing. Doug was undefeated as a starting pitcher and logged several more innings in relief. It took me a while to find Doug at his home in Ruth. After 47 years, the reunion was a special one. Doug played his high school ball at Harbor Beach High School. Mark Reese. Mark was nicknamed Wilbur by his teammates for his elusive knuckleball. In addition to his pitching, Mark made a diving, game-saving catch with the bases loaded in extra innings to save a game for us against Marysville. Mike Reno, quite simply one of the best baseball players that I've ever coached, and I've coached quite a few. Mike played 2 years at SC4 and then 2 more years at Grand Valley. At a Shamrock reunion party that we had several years ago, Mike was named the all-time most valuable Shamrock. Greg White, nicknamed the Wiz. Greg led the 75 team in innings pitched. His best effort was in the league playoffs when he shut out the Diamonds 4-0 for the Shamrock victory. Kirk Wilkinson. Kirk played at the infield and had a wonderful knack for getting a hit just when we needed one. To this day, you can still hear him refer to himself as 14, his Shamrock number. My friends, that's the 1975 Port Huron Shamrock baseball team. Once again, I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for making tonight possible. Sorry, Yogi. I'd also like to thank all the Shamrock families and friends who came out tonight to be here with us. And finally, to the 75 team. You made me very proud 47 years ago, and you've made me very proud again here tonight. You've helped to make having been a Shamrock still a meaningful thing all these many years later. I can't even begin to tell you how happy I am to stand here tonight and tell you that when you look in the mirror tomorrow morning, you'll be looking at one of the newest members of the Port Huron Sports Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.